Boy, Judas singing. We're gonna have to intersperse that with Bob Forrest singing. I think.
Because I got high. Because I got high. That's the song.
Yeah,
and I was gonna go to school, but I was high. It's like the story of my life. I could have cheated, but I could have passed, but I was high.
That's Afro,
not high, drunk.
What's
Afro Man.
Afro Man. That's right. Yes, I actually really like that. And it's got the
chicken
in there. Yeah.
There's like the clean version and there's the unclean version.
Right. It's definitely one of the better songs, though, if you're drinking.
I can't hear you for some reason in my...
Really?
Yeah, now I can. And
maybe I'm just not speaking properly.
We're in the studio with a hysterical comedian.
Yes. Yes.
So did you sign a pact, or you just decided to... Because there's that whole segment also of... isn't it with Christianity where they sign it, like the Billy Graham Pact?
Oh, no. I mean, I never... We're not like fundamentalist Baptists. My family drinks. They brew their own beer. You know, I mean, the interesting about my parents is both their fathers were pretty abusive alcoholics, and they had both done really dramatic, intense change, and they both made a very dedicated, purposeful change in their lives to raise their kids better and not to drink like that. And they don't. But they both have a brother who, I mean, I guess you're 4 times or what is it? It's genetic. So you're like 4 times more prone to become, you know, a substance abuser or alcoholic if you have someone directly in your family.
What are the latest stats? You know?
Yeah, I think he's about right.
My mom told me for years. She's like, basically, you're playing with fire. You know, it takes a teenager 3 to 4 months to become addicted to a substance, is where it takes an adult 3 to 4 years. And these are things. My parents are both retired teachers, very dedicated to their kids and family. So it's just, again, it's one of those things where there was no pact. It was just, I guess it was just. My career, my life was not going where it was, where I wanted to go, and I was not really happy. And I knew that in order to make a more meaningful, path here in life, I need to make a change.
What I think is great, though, too, I think, I think when you're content with who you are, there are you're okay with other people getting help however they need. Yeah. And there's no difference between religion and there's no difference between people in AA. You know, it's a lot of people don't know why they are. Right. You know, and those are the people that can't handle differing opinions. And, I'm from a community where they can't handle differing opinions.
But, we even see this in the treatment community. It's one of the things that I've been really trying to reach out, and that's one of the great things about this show and having a lot of different types of professionals on here as well as different types of people with experiences in their own recovery. And that there's different ways for people to get sober. It isn't necessarily just one way. And there's different types of people with different types of illnesses. And, I actually started my career working in acute care psychiatric facilities, and where people had extreme psychiatric illnesses, and a lot of them self-medicated secondarily with substance abuse issues. So for me, I didn't really ever see substance abuse issues as being a primary concern. It was always about treating primary psychiatric disorders, schizophrenia, bipolar illness, and then you'd see the substance abuse sort of secondary, if at all. Most people thought it would dissipate, and I think even in the psychiatric community for a long time there was a belief that was always the case, that substance abuse was just purely secondary to some underlying psychiatric illness. And you see a lot of people now, I guess there's a few rehabs out there that are advertising they have a cure for addiction, and it's funny, you read their books and their cure for addiction is deal with all your psychiatric problems and then don't drink. Right.
Right.
Like that's the cure. Yeah.
Right. And there's a major problem. It's so I think.
What are my psychiatric problems and how and where do I get help? First of all,
right. It was like I heard somebody one time say, they go, I was going to be dead, but I was going to understand it. And I had been to so many therapists before I had ever gotten sober, and all of them would say the same. I was always that kid in school that didn't do well, but so that had to get assessed, and I would always ace the assessment. But nobody ever was curious, let's go see why he's not doing well in school. Let's go check the home, And I have the most caring parents, I should say, but there's Yeah, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I think one of the things is it's amazing to me how early we still are in scientifically into looking at addiction and psychiatric disorders and comorbidity of the two. And
do you believe it's because of the anonymity of it, or it's the?
Well, I mean, certainly, if you look just in dollar volume, psychiatric treatment in the United States is $77 billion annually. And
And AA is free.
And treatment of substance abuse disorders is about $22 billion annually in the U.S. So, the psychiatric market is 3 times the size.
The lobby is way more powerful.
Yeah, and then there's this combination down the middle, which I think is, fairly significant. And there's been a lot of debate, and there's a lot of debate ongoing. But really, one of the conversations I keep having with people that are pure psych or pure substance abuse or pure abstinence is that really we're all on the same side of the table. The goal here is to end pain and suffering and to deal with illnesses that are either, psychiatric or substance abuse. They're all biological as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't matter really how you get to the point of being ill. The question is, what's the solution?
Something very interesting that Dr. Berger was talking about in the beginning of the show with, what was it, with 2 years? The relapse.
Yeah, right. Flips.
And it flips. Yeah. My first therapist, well, not my first therapist, but one of my therapists in New York, used to not treat people until they were sober for 2 years. Yeah. Because she'd say, work the 12 steps, get sober, and then come see me. Don't use me as your, sponsor. Don't use me as your 12 steps.
Well, it's unfortunate. It used to be in psychiatric hospitals, the minimum length of stay was 30, 60 days. And they did that just to baseline people, just to get people to the point where they knew what they were dealing with. Yeah. So, they'd be free of substances, and you'd have them generally off most medications or take them down to a reasonable amount, and then you'd see where they were and what the real diagnosis is. And now in the medical profession, with hospitals, because of insurance and where we are with the state of insurance reform, as I like to call it, instead of healthcare reform,
because they don't want to lose their insurance benefits, right? If you go to rehab,
that happens too. But the length of stay is really short now. I mean, your average length of stay in a psychiatric hospital is about 8 days.
Is that what it is? It's dropped to 8 days.
It's about 8 days.
That's amazing.
I call them spin dries. It's just like
right.
They're just spinning you real quick and getting you out. The facility I went to was a 28-day program. But I just have an interesting side spiritual story. A friend of David and I was just on his way home. Todd C. was listening to the radio, and he went to a friend to learn how to meditate yesterday. And the guy sends him quotes every day, and he sent him this quote today about the 2 wolves this morning.
Oh wow!
Right, this is crazy, right? But this is one of those things where this is a friend of ours that's fairly newly sober, and he was feeling not right. He was just feeling kind of off today, kind of a bad day, lousy day, whatever. And he read the message. It was a text message about the 2 wolves, and then he wasn't feeling good. He stopped by a friend's house tonight and just meditated with a buddy of his and meditated on the 2 wolves. And then he got in his car and he started driving. I mean, that stuff is like that
happens to me with the Steve Miller Band. I don't know why, but everywhere I go,
you're so 80s, dude. That's hilarious.
That's 70s.
I feel as though we're all we're all like
connected.
We're all spiritually connected.
That's true.
And the longer I stay away from alcohol and drugs and things that I get clearer, and then I can see things from a completely different perspective, and I'm also connected with my with friends and with people. I just met David tonight, but
right.
I'm very
Brian. I loved your acting. I loved doing The Town. I loved doing Brotherhood. I think you just do an incredible job. And
thank you.
And acting to me seems like such a difficult art form.
I think alcoholism and addiction is like preschool for acting.
It's like the actor's studio.
I consider it. I consider my disease a gift, and the fact that I have all these things and situations and things that happen in my life a gift, because I can draw on them and use those situations and circumstances to make something real.
So we see so many actors out there that have died from drug abuse, or it seems like they claim method acting and they've got to immerse themselves in a role. What do you say to people like that? Do you ever get young actors coming up to you and asking you, like, because a lot of the roles you play are pretty gritty. I mean, it's not like you're playing.
Yeah, you have to be willing to. I mean, my coach, I studied with Candace Silvers for since day one, and
is that Phil Silvers?
And she said, yeah, it's Phil Silvers' daughter, and she always said, if you're here to feel good, then you're in the wrong business. And because a lot of the interesting roles and different characters, you have to be willing. Me personally, I feel as an actor, I have to be willing to go to a dark place, and to bring that to bring that character alive and make it believable. And but there's different. I mean, there's Meisner and there's Roy London. Candace is Roy London based, and then there's Meisner and there's Method. And Kevin Spacey recently said in an interview that to find truth in the character, and so different actors have their different ways of getting there. But
so you visit it, you just don't live there.
I used to feel that
oh no, I live. When I'm working, I'm in it and I'm being it.
Right, but then when you leave it.
Sometimes
is it hard?
I have to go to my trailer for a little while.
Yeah, because that's got to be really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I've had friends call me in between shots on set, and I'm working, especially on Brotherhood, because that guy, he was very dark, that character, and I've gone off on friends on the phone, and not even really remember, and so that it's to go in and out. Is difficult at times for me, anyways, and sometimes it takes me a while to just to get out of it. And I have to give myself that time.
I was actually with this designer today. Actually, it was actually a political fundraiser, which I probably shouldn't mention. But and she was talking about how she had read a book when she was young, and then she had just read it again lately, after like 30 years, and she couldn't believe how many little parts of this book that she had read 30 years before were like actually parts of her personality now, and that she didn't know it. That these things that she thought were from herself actually had started when she had read this book when she was young. And when she was young, she hadn't read it knowing how it would affect her.
Was it Judy Blume?
No, it wasn't Judy Blume.
Atlas Shrugged.
But I wonder that with actors, where is the line between yourself and the character? And has Charlie Sheen become one of? You look at him at Wall Street. And how could you not have played that role in Wall Street and have that not affect who you are?
He said too that that a lot of these actors they become celebrated for their dysfunction. And when they have all the representation, the people surrounding them are making all this money. They don't want this person to change because they're making a fortune off of them.
It's like a horse.
I mean, they were buying John Belushi his blow when he was on Saturday Night Live. They were providing it for him, and
he was paying people to keep it away, and they were paying people.
To put it. Yeah,
I used to think when I was drinking, I was like, I'm a better actor. I'm edgier. I'm much more volatile, and I'm going to find stuff, and you like some crazy Sam Shepard play, and you got to be all this dysfunctional crazy. But that's a lie. Now that I've been sober, and my work is 1,000% better because number one, you have so much more clarity and honesty with it.
Right.
When you're hungover, you're delusional. You don't have access to all this stuff, and now that you have this clarity and this honesty with yourself and what's going on with this character too, this better understanding, you access stuff so much easier as you're saying, well, you can go in and out of this guy, or you really. Honestly, when you go to that dark place, you're going to that dark place. Or
the fact that you could do brain synapses with your fingers.
That was pretty amazing.
That was pretty. Yeah, that was pretty great.
I saw the serotonin and the norepinephrine.
I did too.
Through the.
But you know
what I mean? It's like it's such a better. The real.
I guess that was a joke.
But here's the thing. We do. It's. Most actors don't make it that are on drugs and alcohol, and that's the reality. It's like you could look at the early '80s; they had some of the finest, the greatest actors. Whether it was Mickey Rourke, whether it was. And you're on the air. We're like.
Yeah, I know we're trying to decide our breaks. Let's take a quick break.
Okay,
why don't you give us our phone number?
The number here is 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830.
We're gonna take a quick break. It's KLEAN Radio.